What's up, nerds? Once again, Yakov here, back again. Talk about the old days of the internet, baby. We're using that way back machine to go back to November 20th, 2001 and check out that weirdnj.com, Weird New Jersey. You probably heard about some bullcrap they've done at some point. I think there was a History Channel show, something, Weird US, something like that. And I'm sure you've got many weird tales from your own town that are very similar to the ones I'm reading. They seem to be stories that many of us have in common, one way or another. We've all got a Midgetville, right? Like, you got a town full of albinos, right? I do, you don't? Hate those albinos. Go there and throw rocks at them. That's what we do. So if you're out there in the chat, I want you to give me a whoop whoop, as we do here. Gathering the Juggalos coming up. I think I'm going to go with or without money. We're showing up. Frankly, if you want to help me fund that endeavor, you should probably send me some cash. I'll make some content. I'll never promise a documentary again in my life, but I'll make some content. So who out there? Who ready to hear about some cookie jar house, dude? Get your hand out of that cookie jar house. Nothing for you in there. Would you live in the cookie jar house? What if we made out in the cookie jar house? What if your old Mother Hubbard may have had her shoe house imitated many times? Old Mother Hubbard may have had her shoe house imitated many times, but John D. of Glendora can claim to be living in the only cookie jar house in the United States. He's the only one to get that honor, to get that privilege to live in the cookie jar house. How many cookies does he keep in there? Well, he's a diabetic. The house was built in 1947, said John. It was built as a speculation house. They were going to make a community of them. Originally, it had a flat roof and a stucco finish. The brickwork was added later, probably because with a flat roof, it had a lot of leak problems. I spent a lot of time fixing it up. The 3-story steel-framed building has a spiral staircase in the center, going up to the roof, and a widow's walk. A tour of the inside makes one a bit disoriented because every room is semicircular. Very scary rooms on this Roadside Weirdside in New Jersey. Everybody asks me about not having any corners in the house, said Jack. I do have some problems getting furniture up and down the staircase. Still, it's very comfortable. The Dobbins have been toying with the idea of selling the house, although if they could move it, they would if they just pick it up, dude. In 1978, Dobbins had decorated the house as a jack-o'-lantern for Halloween. John said many people ride by to look at the place. The only attraction in Glendora, he says. I've worked in Glendora. I would commit a B&E on the cookie jar house. I would do it. There's nothing spooky about this place. I don't really get it, per se. I guess we're not really in spooky territory. The Roadside Weirdside is more about, like, freaks and their domiciles. Egg-o-mat. Go to the Egg-o-mat, see what the Egg-o-mat is all about. 24-hour service is kind of what they specialize in. The Egg-o-mat. Until recently, one of New Jersey's most unusual roadside oddities could be found on Mountain Boulevard in the town of Warren. It was the Egg-o-mat, a 24-hour vending machine offering eggs of distinction. Now a mere shell of its former self, the self-service egg dispenser is remembered fondly by local residents who used to travel to the unique device at all hours of the day or night for fresh eggs. The Egg-o-mat was built in the early 50s and operated by a man named Camillo Epstein. Epstein! It was refrigerated by an air conditioning unit mounted in the back wall and offered eggs in a variety of sizes. Though it had not been operational for several years, just seeing it there, right across the street from the Warren Library and Municipal Building, gave a visitor to the town a rare glimpse into the community's farmland past. The farmland past. Spooky, creepy, terrifying farmland past. Leaning slightly to the right the last time visited, this roadside oddity was really showing its age. Though some local citizens tried to organize a Save the Eggomat Foundation, the kiosk remained in less than excellent condition. Got him. During a recent trip to Warren, we noticed the Eggomat sign was missing from the top of the weathered wooden structure. We couldn't tell if it had been plucked off or if, like Humpty Dumpty, it had toppled on its own. The last time we drove by, we were shocked to see that the Eggomat was gone altogether. We feared that the Eggomat, like so many of our cherished local landmarks, might have fallen victim to the rampant development so prevalent in our state today. Whew. I wish I could just read everything like Francis C. Deck would, but it hurts. Fortunately, though, one of our readers informed us that the Eggomat has been saved by the Warren Historical Society and was dismantled and moved to a safe location to await restoration. Moved to a safe location to await restoration in the Black Nation. Hopefully, all the King's men will be able to put this Humpty Dumpty back together again. I could use eggs. Okay. So if there's so many eggs, where are the chickens? Where do they keep the chickens in that thing? It's just a thought. Jet in the woods? Jet in the woods, dude. Look at that piece of crap. Talking about the guy. He crashed that jet like an asshole. He's proud of it. I have lived in West Milford for over 40 years. One morning in December some years ago, I was hunting deer in a patch of woods off Macopin Road. The sun was coming and I was getting cold, so I decided to take a walk. I walked through the hard woods to the edge of a swampy marsh area. I saw something shining in the distance through the early morning fog. At first, I thought I was too close to houses. As I moved closer, I saw that it was a jet that had crashed and broken into pieces. All of the gauges were out of the jet, but the cockpit was still intact. The wings were broken off and the tail was some 55 yards away. The strange part was that the trees were all grown up around it. A cold wind began to blow, and at the time, the screech of an owl broke the morning silence. With that, I left. Everyone I spoke to after that said they had never heard of the jet in the woods. Now that's weird in New Jersey, from Doug G, who found this jet. What is this? Broken image. There's a jet in the woods. Now we're getting to the meat and potatoes. Midgetville! Look at that, dude. What kind of a little critter lives in there, dude? Would you get down on one knee and give him a kiss on the forehead? Once the road turned yellow, we knew it was going to be a weird day. Our search for the fabled, often sought-after town of Midgetville brings us to this year's site somewhere in northern New Jersey. Here, our normal-sized friend inspects the tiny houses in a community we believe may be the town that everyone and their brother has been to, but can never remember how to get there. Although we cannot be sure this is the property once belonging to the Ringling Company, we can attest to the fact that these homes come complete with 4-foot doors and undersized windows. Is this Midgetville? One of our informants told us there was a tiny Victorian castle in Midgetville, but we didn't find one here. The stop signs weren't 3 feet tall either. Unfortunately, there was no one around to confirm this site as being the real Midgetville. So we're keeping it logged in the database, and we're off to another lead on tracking this elusive community. But if you must tell your friends where you vacationed this year, tell them you visited Midgetville in Weird, New Jersey. So the readers write in about Midgetville, maybe we can get more evidence, more tales about the midget people. I made a short the other day, YouTube short. If you check my shorts, there's a tale about a midgetville in Wisconsin, in Waukesha County, and how there's an albino man. Now you combine the albino village with the midget town, you can put them all together and you get an albino redneck with a shotgun protecting the midgets from invaders, and if they catch you and he doesn't blast your fucking head off with the shotgun, they cut off your legs from the knees down. They killed 50 men that way, and you have to live like a midget. God damn it. Would you live like him? Are you a bad enough dude to live as a midget? Stuff to think about. Got Senor out there in the chat. We've been playing a lot of WWF No Mercy. Maybe we'll stream that sometime. Maybe. Maybe we will. Midgetville was on River Road before the George Washington Bridge. The houses were small and the stop signs small. They were cottages and still exist, although no midgets lived there. It was a rumor spread to keep people out of this exclusive area, even though we always wound up there at 5 a.m. after a drunken night. Midgetville, so the houses are small, the stop signs are small, but no midgets lived there is what they're claiming. I think this is fake news propaganda. That was from Steve D. I don't trust that guy at all. One of the Ringling brothers had an estate in Morris Township. I found out about this when we visited the very elaborate Ringling Museum in St. Peter's of St. Petersburg, Florida. I think they even mentioned people from the circus staying on the estate. I had driven past it a few times, but never investigated further. From Mark R. Mark Ringling? Liar. Shill. My brother visited the house called Midgetville. It was built to the size scale of a pair of height challenged folk who had made a great deal of money in motion pictures way back when. Supposedly the house looks no different from the outside. After the house was sold, the small scale interior was left intact, but the floors were dropped to provide headroom for the average height occupants. My brother is going to contact the person who took him there many years ago. From Renee M. I've heard other tales of midgetvilles where you go there in the middle of the night and you stick your head out of the car and you'll fee, fi, fo, fum. And then they all come out of their houses and they throw rocks at you and bottles at your car. Was it worth it? Yes. The Palace of Depression. Welcome home. Welcome home, everybody! The Palace of Depression to rise again? No! It's happening again! In Vineland, New Jersey. Why would they bring that place back? I was sick and tired of that frickin' place, dude. I was just starting to feel alright with myself. And they built that piece of crap. One of Vineland's many contributions to the state's weirdness quotient. How do sentences work? One of Vineland's many contributions to the state's weirdness quotient was a landmark built of old car parts and junk gathered from the local dump during the Depression years of the early 30s. This monument to the resourcefulness and ingenuity of one man stood on Mill Road just south of Landis Avenue. So it's like Disney World, but it's made of trash. That's kind of awesome. I do like it. The Palace Depression. The Palace Depression, as the site was known, was the eccentric dream of George Daner, who built his house on a swampy, mosquito-infested automobile graveyard without any plans, rhyme, or reason. He constructed the 18-spired storybook castle with nothing more than his own two hands. One day, he just started to pile up rocks, mud, and garbage from the nearby Williams junkyard to create a structure different from any other in the world. Am I doing like Monster Truck Rally, or am I doing Francis E. Deck? You're not sure. Would you buy tickets to the trash rally. Garbage Day is a very dangerous day. Daner, very dangerous Daner. Daner, who claimed to have been guided to Vineland at the urging of an angel, told people he only had $4 in his pocket and lost half of his fortune in the San Francisco earthquake of 1906. It's happened to all of us at this point. While the other half went to the wind when Wall Street crashed in 1929. To show the ingenuity of what one man could build with virtually nothing, his castle became billed as the strangest house in the world. Literally just a hoarder. The palace was a hodgepodge of materials, including old car chassis for floor beams and gables fashioned from old car fenders. Concrete walls were constructed from odd pieces of cement and rocks, and bed frames were made into swinging doors. To paint the house, Daner pulverized old red bricks and mixed them with crankcase motor oil. The dome on top of the house was a large kettle turned upside down. Old wagon wheels formed the bases for cone-shaped towers and revolving doors. The dining table was made of a huge cypress log with knee holes cut into it, and stumps were used as seats. How do you do this with $4? How much crap you gotta steal? Well, I guess it was all from the junkyard, but like, can you just do that? Could I do that these days? I pay taxes. Can I just build up a heap of trash in my yard and call it a castle? And charge for admission. There were many darkened rooms and corners where Mr. Daner would delight in regaling visitors with tales of hidden rivers and his vision of happiness and security. He would show people the wishing well and knockout room, dude. What's going on in there? Going on an adventure you'll never remember, where a heavy boulder was suspended above a chair. It's the Looney Tunes room. Dude's got an anvil. He's got a piano up there on a rope. A piano. If you wanted to forget about your troubles, you could sit on the chair under the boulder and get a bonk on the head. Reportedly, no one ever took him up on this offer. Daner even constructed an underground Jersey Devil's den, which one could crawl through. Why? I'd rather sit in the bonking chair than crawl through the Devil's Den. The castle itself had no windows, but shards of glass that created a colorful sunrise and sunset mosaic. The property was neatly laid out with ponds and gardens that Daner would guide tourists around, all for 25 cents a head. And when it says head, it means head. He was killing people in that place. The shards of glass just littered about so you can't escape once he steals all your clothing. Like, you're winding up in that pond. They'll never find you. Daner set out with the use of a PR firm to make sure the palace received attention from the media. Although there were never any signs to guide one to the site, it gained the attention of the newspapers, magazines, and television. Daner appeared on the TV program You Asked for This. You asked for it. You asked to sit in the chair. And Robert, Believe It or Not Ripley. Robert, Believe It or Not Ripley. That's a... I ain't call him that. Just call him Robert Ripley, devoted one of his syndicated cartoons to the palace. That's a pretty sweet cartoon. This cartoon, by Stooky Allen, appeared in Smash Comics magazine, year 1939 of January. He beat the Depression. George Daner of Vineland, New Jersey. I'm trying to read this crappy print. Stoneback and working alone, built a beautiful home in a swamp out of mud and tin cans. Doesn't sound beautiful. With his two hands and only $4, he made himself a fortune. He now collects a fee. Several hundred visitors a day. How many come out is all I'm asking. How many actually get out of that place? Daner Always the consummate self-promoter, would do almost anything to keep his name and his home in the news. The Palace Depression became so well known that by the 1940s it was featured on road maps distributed by Esso gas stations, and was the subject of comic books, print newsreels, and a series of postcards. Daner had a wild appearance, and at times people questioned his sanity. In 1938, he asked the Smithsonian if they would like to examine his brain, apparently while he was still alive. That's pretty funny. Eventually, Daner's efforts to keep his name in the headlines would prove his undoing. He went a little too far in a bizarre scheme that had the FBI convicting him of giving false information involving the Weinberger kidnapping case of 1957. He had claimed the kidnappers contacted him about hiding their victim in the dungeons. Oh, here we go. In the dungeons of his palace. After confessing his story was made up simply for the publicity, he was sentenced to 1 year in federal prison for giving false information to the United States officials. So there was almost certainly a body in there. He was one of the kidnappers. And then he was like, wait, actually, I made it up. There's no body. And instead of like finding him guilty of killing a bunch of people, they're like, all right, 1 year. During that time, the palace was left to vandals who looted and partially burned the place to the ground. Even tourists, who still came to visit, ended up walking through the house and taking a souvenir or two with them, since no one was around to watch over the estate. When he was released from jail and returned home, Daner, now nearing 100 years old, realized that he could never rebuild the palace to its former glory. He died penniless shortly after on October 20th, 1964, at the Cumberland County Hospital, at age 104. My God. That's what drinking blood does to a guy, yeah. He beat the depression by becoming a Dracula. Though he wished to be buried on his property, he was laid to rest in a pauper's grave in the Oak Hill Cemetery. In 1969, this architectural wonder, then returning slowly to its former incarnation as the run-of-the-mill junk, was demolished by the city of Vineland. Gone forever was the New Jersey landmark that over 500,000 people had visited. One man's testament to the principle that personal fortitude could triumph over the powers of the Great Depression. In the words of the creator himself, the Palace Depression stands as a proof that education by thought can lift all the depressed peoples out of any depression, calamity, or catastrophe, if mankind would use it. The proof stands before you, my friends. Seeing is believing. And seeing it being resurrected is quite unbelievable, as a non-profit group calling itself Palace of Depression Restoration Association Incorporated plans on raising $300,000 in grants and donations to rebuild the strangest house in the world. The property is owned by the city, but it is donating the use of it for this project. The association said it would have the building complete by this summer, using mostly donated labor and materials. Even the local Home Depot is chipping in for the effort. Local artists and college students have offered to help rebuild the palace, as have grassroots artists such as Isaiah Zagar, whose mosaics, bottles, mirror shards, bicycle wheels, and tires decorate many buildings along South Street in Philadelphia. So this certainly didn't happen. I want to like check up on it, but like, no way. This is 2001. They're saying it's like by the summer. I've never even heard of this thing except for this article. Now we gotta do a little research. Okay. Historic site in Vineland. I guess. It looks pretty weak. It's there, I suppose. I don't think it looks anything like it's supposed to. And they're definitely building it like it's an actual house where you have to have things up to code, and that's pretty shameful if I'm being honest. I don't know. Probably not worth it. If it looks anything like South Street, it's a crap hole. Holly Metz, a Hoboken resident who teaches grassroots art, calls the Palace Depression one of the major grassroots art sites of the 20th century, and calls Daner a forerunner of performance art and a really unusual figure. The new version of the Palace Depression will have a visitor center reminiscent of a scene from the 1983 film Eddie and the Cruises, which featured a Hollywoodized version of the palace. Parts of the film were shot in Vineland. The new building will feature a similar theme as Daner's, only newer fender and car parts will be used. Visitors will also be able to view artifacts dug up at the site, and a film made by Universal Pictures in 1938 entitled The Fantastic Palace, featuring Daner giving a tour of the property. It seems hard to believe that the non-profit group can actually pull this feat off, being that no architectural plans exist and only rare pictures and a few 15-minute films have survived through the years. To even find automobile parts from the 30s would seem almost impossible and impractical to be embedded into concrete. But it seems to have stirred many emotions in the people that remember the palace in its heyday, and those that can envision what it might once again become. The group has only to find the perfect junk to rebuild the castle, and some welders and body and fender guys to donate their services. The community response to the project has been very positive, and even the local Boy Scouts have offered to lend a hand. Amazingly, bits and pieces of the original palace have been resurfacing from local basements and mantles, which are being offered. So it's just junk people stole on their mantle? That's where I'd put it, I don't know. Which are being offered in support of the reconstruction. Whether the group recreates it faithfully or not, it will be an interesting and weird second coming. There's no way the new one looks anything like it. The pictures I'm seeing side by side with the old one, there's nothing even remotely similar. Weird NJ took a tour of the all but vacant palace property back in November. The gatehouse, where Daner sold admission tickets to his masterwork, is the only remaining structure on the land. It has more the appearance of an abandoned tomb, rather than that of an entrance to a once popular cultural phenomenon. You could still see remnants of Daner's handiwork along the path to the gatehouse. Broken shards of old pottery and bottles are still wedged into crumbling retaining walls. Would you just put the bodies into the walls at that point, right? The guys got the know-how. There are bodies to be found. In rebuilding the Palace Depression from the rubble, maybe the body of George Daner, like an old flathead motor once dug up from his property, will slowly turn over once more. Even from beyond the grave, he may once again put Vineland on the map. That's that Palace of Depression, baby. Bring it back or don't bring it back? What do you guys think? Photon, Senor in the chat says Midgetville, more like Fleshlight Land. Autopilot be in the chat. What up, dude? I love lesser known paranormal and conspiracy websites. They all have a very distinct do-it-yourself aesthetic. Peak Soul. That goes for like websites in general too. Once you go before, what is it, like 2005 or so? They were all made by some nerd who knew a thing. They knew it well. Nobody else cared, but they knew it. Route 23 mystery polls. The first pole art piece appeared around 1994 along the southbound lane of Route 23 near Smoke Rise, Kinnelon. A plastic pumpkin sat atop a 30-foot utility pole, grinning to passerbys. Slowly, other characters began showing up atop the poles along that stretch of road. A chicken, a bowling pin, a 2-foot-tall beer bottle, a mailbox, a rabbit, a flamingo, and a bright pink pig were all perched on consecutive low-voltage telephone poles. Nobody seems to know who is placing them there, though, making their strange appearance even more perplexing to the local residents. Kinnelon Mayor Glenn Cisco said the polls drew mixed reactions from the townsfolk. To some people it's funny, Cisco said in the record. To some people it's sick. Sick and twisted. Kinnelon Police Captain Elmer Bott said in the record that except for one anonymous complaint about the polls distracting motorists, the polls haven't caused any problems. However, he stated that the exhibit is illegal, citing a law prohibiting affixing anything to utility poles. When asked to what lengths his officers had gone to find the culprit, Bott said, "Let's put it this way. We did not stake it out looking for individuals that were responsible. We just shot them in cold blood." But to what lengths will this mysterious pole artist go to perpetuate his ornamental art? Bear in mind that these pieces have appeared sporadically over a long period of time. This always makes watching for new ones more fun because you never know when or where that the next one is going to pop up. The mystery artist must do his work at night to avoid being spotted. This would be daring work in the daylight, so must be extremely hazardous in the dark. Very dangerous work. As if this wasn't brazen enough, whoever is responsible has more recently been decorating the poles in a much more highly visible area of Route 23 near Cannister Road. Yes, just as the Kinnelon grouping of pole ornaments began to fade due to weathering, their mysterious mounters surprised everyone by starting a whole new group a few miles farther north, on the poles that border the Oak Ridge Reservoir. Now, West Milford residents are feeling the draw of the pole art, where a metal whale and a witch, a gnome, a rubber chicken, a bird, a mutant ninja turtle, a snowman, a ball and a chain, Mr. Peanut, an alien, and the list goes on and on. Who could be doing this? Why would they do this? West Milford keeps popping up. There are spooky things happening there. Dude, why would you hang Big Bird? What does this mean? We got a ball and chain, a gnome, and Big Bird hanging from a noose. Maybe it's saying that we are slaves to society wearing our ball and chain, and the overlords, the little people, the fae folk, the aliens, the other ones are watching us. They're watching us from on high. And they build up our idols like Big Bird just to kill them, to traumatize us and keep us enslaved, and the cycle starts all over again. Unlike their neighbors to the south, the town of West Milford, where the new poles were located, was not going to take the onslaught lying down. There was an effort made to remove all of the offending ornaments from the poles in question. But what do you think happened? That's right. What do you think happened? What do you think? That's right, just as soon as they were taking down, a new series of different pieces went up. It would almost seem that this renegade pole-hopping craftsman was on some kind of a weird mission. But what do these weird creations represent? A strange telephone pole cult? An homage to some forgotten lineman? Or just someone with too much free time? And who is this artist anyway? A few people have told us that they suspect people in the Department of Public Works or the utility company, and this would probably make sense. After all, you would have to have the proper climbing equipment in order to pull the stunt off. Perhaps it's a disgruntled telephone company ex-employee. One thing is for sure. This guy is dedicated, for his work in progress has been progressing steadily for about 5 years now. West Milford resident James Weinbrecht was the first one to bring the pole art to the attention of Weird NJ in 1996. We've been photographing these poles ever since, whenever we notice a new one go up. The Halloween one was the best because it used to be bright orange, said Weinbrecht, drummer for the band Reno's Men. The bear was made by that guy on Route 23 who carves all these wooden sculptures. That doesn't mean he put it up there. Somebody probably bought it and put it up. It's freaky, it's weird. I think the mailbox is for airmail. I think once in a while, they get airmail up there. I don't even want to think about what kind of letters arrive in that mailbox. If you thought about it, it'd make you go crazy. So crazy, they'd have to put you in the Dover mental cage. Do you want to live in there? Do you want to go in the cage? Is that where you want to go? Sitting on a hilltop alongside Herd Park in Dover, you can see something quite unexpected. A full-size iron cage, complete with bunk beds. I get top bunk, is all I'm saying. It appears to be a jail cell of some type, with one of its 2 compartments still locked. The local population seems to have the opinion that this cage was used to keep undesirable patients from the nearby hospital at bay. As one of our readers writes, well, I just want to know, if one of those compartments is still locked, how did that guy get out of there? Spooky ghost? Aliens? As one of our readers writes, there's a cage that was built to keep the violently insane. It was far enough from the original hospital so the patients couldn't hear their screams and yells. The cage still stands. No roof, no running water. Running water? Let me get plumbing in my cage. Yo, this cage need plumbing. This cage in the woods. Just roughly an 8 foot by 8 foot cage with a steel wall down the center and a bunk that folds up on each side. One door is slightly ajar so you can enter, as long as you don't have too much around the middle. Trees have grown up through the bars. It is a real eerie sight, and a dark mark on the history of mental health. A staff member at the hospital wrote this letter to us after reading about the cage in Weird NJ. I've worked at the nearby hospital St. Clair's Dover for about a year, and many of the workers there, including me, didn't know of this thing until issue number 15. Talking about the magazine, the Weird NJ magazine. It's pretty interesting. You still find them around. I don't know, they're a throwback. It's cool. I decided to go check it out. Instead of hiking up the hill in Herd Park, it's just a short walk through the lobby parking lot from the hospital behind the daycare. My friend and I were digging around and we discovered an old, rusty butter knife. It appeared to be from the kitchen where we work. We ran back with our discovery to show our coworkers, since everyone thought we were crazy to go check this out on our break. After calming down, we went to go have a smoke in the lounge and asked a PCU nurse about it. She tried to cover up by telling us it used to hold oxygen tanks for patients. She said they'd put patients in the cage so they wouldn't mess with the tanks. I don't know about all that, but I'm going to keep asking around to see if I can find the real use. I just don't want to know why they held the patients in the middle of the woods, and why, when they built the parking lot, they stopped paving 5 feet before the cage. Maybe there's some sort of curse. From Diane G. Oxygen tanks, huh? In actuality, the Herd Park cage has nothing to do at all with the nearby hospital or the mentally ill. Dover historian George Laurie told Weird NJ that the cage was originally the first lockup for the neighboring town of Wharton. When the Wharton police station was remodeled, the antique jail cell was donated to the Dover Historical Society and moved to an old mansion which used to stand where the Herd Park is located today. The wooden mansion subsequently burned to the ground, and the only thing left standing was the old iron hoosgow. Put that dude in a cage for lying, for covering up for the mental institutions. Who do you think was in that cage? ChatGPT, which historical figures were in the Dover mental cage? Shirtwood Forest. That's where I live. Buy shirt. I live in the land of shirt. That actually basically is where I live. That's pretty close. I go for a hike. I drive 5 minutes. I'm doing some hiking, and it do be looking exactly like that. And, you know, finding weird crap out in the woods is always a little bit creepy. You know, there's not too much weird about, like, you don't usually find like a Dora the Explorer backpack weird, but when it's 10 miles out in the woods and it's across like a creek that's not easily accessible, there's no path over there, it's like, why is there children's clothes out there? I go to Shirtwood Forest and I harvest fresh shirt from the trees to sell to you at teespring.com/stores/Yakov-alive. I think that link still works. Pretty sure. Speaking of Shirtwood Forest, while we're on Shirtwood Forest, before I go any further, let me shill shirt. You know what I mean? If I'm going to talk about shirt, then let's talk about shirt. I've got a number of shirt out there for you. You hit me up, I'll tie-dye you a fresh shirt. You get a fresh tie-dye from me, I'll print whatever you will bootleg crap you want on it. I don't give a crap. Other than that, I do have some Teespring shirts. I'm waiting for... The images gotta load, you know what I mean? I got the folder. It's too full of images. It takes forever to load. It's too full of stupid images that I don't need that aren't named properly. You all understand, right? Like, trying to keep... Everything's falling apart here. Everything's falling apart. So, shirt time. Look at that shirt. Look at this freshly harvested shirt from Sherwood Forest. All over print. Bigfoot. Patterson film. Imagine it all over your body. Imagine being able to prove to everyone you see that Bigfoot is real. Wear this shirt. Simple. Simple as. There's a Skinwalker Gang shirt. You can get this also at teespring.com/stores/yakov-alive. And there's the Space Buddha shirt. Everyone likes a Space Buddha, right? Like, looks cool. You go into the fest, you're snorting ketamine. This is the shirt you wear when you do it. And we all know this. Anyway. Why is it gotta make a noise every time I do that? Every time I get rid of an image? How do I make it not do that? That's bullcrap. Okay. Sherwood Forest, the home of shirt, where all fresh shirts are harvested. I live in Brick, and on the other side of my small town is a patch of woods, right by a swamp. During the month of October, I have ventured there many times, and I always find the same weird thing. On October 17th, there were 17 white dress shirts hanging 20 feet high in the trees. They should be 17 feet high, right? We went on the 29th of October, and guess what? Yeah, there were 29 shirt hanging on the trees, along with a strange bird with its neck snapped lying at the bottom of the trees. Today is the 31st, and I wonder what's going to happen next. From Evan L. My name is Joe, and I live in Bricktown. Recently, my family and I visited a spot in my hometown that everyone was talking about. They said that back in the woods, there are white shirts nailed up to trees. Not just 1 or 2 shirts, but about 25 of them. I didn't believe them at first, but today was a different story. When I went back there, just as said, white shirts were hanging all over the place. At first, we thought it was just kids, but then started to realize that it would be impossible to put them where they were because the trees were in the middle of a swamp. The shirts were hung up like a person would be inside of them. I threw rocks at them, and they made funny noises, like they were windbreakers or they were possibly sprayed with some sort of starch. It just seemed a little strange to us. Joe from Bricktown. The strange shirts of Sherwood Forest. Up. Alright, haven't even been going an hour yet, so we gotta make sure we get more shit in. We got 315 out there in the chat. 1,000 finger necklace and Space Buddha. That's right. I'm gonna move on from Roadside Weirdside to weird animals, baby. And that's what we want. That's what we come for. That's what we enjoy. The strange animals, the weird animals, the sexy animals, the little critters of nature. They don't know that they're ugly. Chicken with human face. Contributed by James G. According to the Pioneer newspaper dated January 22nd, 1880, ex-freeholder John Lillis of Jersey City owns one of the most peculiar freaks of nature ever seen. It is a chicken with a human face and with feet so misshapen as to be more like lumps of dirt than pedal extremities. The face is almost perfect, handsome even. Instead of a beak, a common nose shows itself, underneath which a mouth, regular proportioned, the upper jaw of which is armed with a set of teeth. The face is bare of feathers, but light whiskers adorn either side of its face, while attached to the chin is a heavy beard. Otherwise, the chicken appears to be foul. It came to New York along with a lot of others, and was bought by George King, a peddler, who presented it to the freeholder. The fowl, at present, is at the corner of Hoboken and Oakland Avenues, but will probably be secured by some museum. So this is definitely some mutated chicken. Makes you wonder, did it actually look like a human? Because what it's describing sounds horrific, nightmarish, Lovecraftian. Now the teeth is a weird one. Like, I believe it had teeth. I do think birds can kind of like mutate to have teeth because it's in their genetics at some point in history. Chicken teeth. That's a thing, right? It occurs in nature. I don't know. What about the cow with the window? Are windows naturally occurring? One of the most famous living legends in New Jersey can be found on the campus of Cook College, Rutgers State University in New Brunswick. It's mooing and peacefully chewing its cud, just like any other hungry heifer. The only difference is that this Jersey bovine has a unique feature, a window into its digestive system. Now you may think of a window with a white frame and glass panes, but this window is more like a portal big enough to fit your arm through. The cow is the product of an experiment designed even, to monitor its digestive system. But the real legend begins with everyone thinking that the cow has a real see-through window on the side of its belly. We decided to track down this local rumor and get right to the heart, or guts, of the matter. Arriving at the experimental animal barn in Cook College, we found no one could direct us to the window. As a matter of fact, the only moving creatures we could find were the cows, who looked at us as if we were choosing our evening's dinner. They loitered around, huddled together in an open barn on that cold, raw morning, hoof deep in steaming cow pies. We walked to the swine house and were told to hang around for a while because the cows were soon going to be fed. Back at the dairy barn, we were met by a couple of students, and after a brief introduction, an instructor appeared. If I had $1 for everyone who asks me about the cow with the window in its stomach, I'd be a rich man, said Tim, an administrator who seemed a bit confused as to the purpose of our visit. We're just about to feed him. We're just about to feed him. I'll show you if you like. I was gonna do like a dignified accent until I read feed him. That changes things a bit. And there are people in Jersey who talk like that, surprisingly. With anticipation and that giddy feeling we get whenever we think we're about to see something really outrageous, we followed along to the back barn, along with the students. Every kid at Cook thinks the cow has a window in it, said one of the agricultural interns. I don't know how that started. Do you know what a colostomy bag is? Tim asked us. That's pretty much what this is. A hole has been cut in the cow's side, then another through the wall of her rumen. That's a cow's first stomach. The edges of the internal hole and the external hole were then sewn together and closed off with a removable plug. Now you can take out the stopper and reach into the cow's rumen through the hole, either to feed her or to clean it out. That's disgusting. It reminds me of that video of a man sticking his head into a woman's vagina. I think about that video a lot, actually. Never should have watched it. Why would you let a 9-year-old kid on LimeWire? Beats the hell out of me. When we saw it, the window was nothing more than a round plastic plug attached to the huge black and white cow's side. It was certainly not the anticipated peek into the internal workings of a beefsteak that we were hoping for. We asked Tim if he wouldn't mind posing for a picture with the cow, elbow deep in the animal's roomy rumen, but he said that would be an utter mess. Tim told us that there have been at least 3 of these experimental cows at Cook in his 13-year tenure there. Then he added that the program might be forced to shut down due to a lack of funding. We told him that perhaps cloning would be a more lucrative line of work to get into, since it seems to be all the rage these days. Well, we do a lot of clowning around here, he replied, but we haven't gotten into any cloning yet. Good one, Tim. Demonic birds. Bird-like creature roams New Jersey same week as the devil in 1909. And if you want to know more about the Jersey Devil sightings in 1909, go to my shorts page. I made a short about it, baby. It's only a minute, and you'll learn everything you need to know. I'm giving you time to watch it. So if you want to watch it, you can watch it. While I smoke. As you're probably aware, the week of January 9th, 1909 was the big week for sightings in South Jersey of the Jersey Devil. While doing some research for a final exam done on the Jersey Devil, I came across an interesting article. It's not about the devil, but some other sighting. No book I've ever read has mentioned it, and I'm sure it's something that history has entirely forgot. Weird? Yes. True? Well, I try to keep an open mind, but this is just beyond belief. This is from the Asbury Park Evening Press, January 22nd, 1909, page 2. The Jersey Devil was also not the only strange being to appear this Friday. Dan Posick of Millville had a struggle with one of the strangest freaks of nature, or a monster straight from the bad place. While Dan was doing his chores, he heard someone in the backyard walking around calling out to him. When he turned around, he beheld a monster beast bird, about 18 feet high. The visitor demanded to know where the garbage can was, asking in perfectly good English. Dan, terrified, ran towards the barn, but the bird caught up with him. It wrapped its sinewy and red beak around Dan's body. Dan began hitting it with a hatchet that he kept in his belt. He was astonished to see that he could chop splinters out of the body, much like he could out of wood. While he was chopping, the beast whispered something in Dan's ear, and with a mighty blow, Dan set the hatchet square into the monster's face. Out popped an eyeball, and with a scream of pain, the assailant took in a long breath, filled its body like a balloon, and floated into space. Mass hysteria was certainly gripping the area. From Ben R. The winged creature of Wanakay. Being born and bred in Wanakay was probably my moral downfall, as many strange, unexplained things have happened to me while I lived there with my parents, which is why, at age 18, I split that town for good. Weak. That's weak. I love my spooky area, my spooky ghosts. I was 9 years old in 1966, but I remember the Wanakay Reservoir UFO flap like it was yesterday. I remember this bright blue light in the sky and the cop standing next to me being visibly shaken. Being a kid, I thought it was cool. The whole experience changed my life forever. I wrote then Congressman Clifford P. Case and asked him for any info on UFOs. He sent me this huge parcel, which turned out to be a copy of Project Blue Book. That's bizarre. 1966? And they're just giving out copies of Project Blue Book? And I know there was a book involved with Blue Book, but was it called, like, the book wasn't called Project Blue Book, was it? They just give that crap out? I don't know. 2 days later, it was missing from my house. Well, that's what happens. My parents and sisters swore that they did not take it. I never saw it again, and later correspondence with Congressman Case went unanswered. I guess I'll never know what really happened. My grade school years were spent at Haskell Elementary School. During the 7th grade, I had a science project to identify and categorize as many insects as I could find. As any local person will tell you, Wanakay was the insect capital of New Jersey. I decided to go to Dead Man's Pond, which was a piece of swampland that was accessible only by a tiny dirt path. Wanakay was also full of swamps that contained some of the biggest snapping turtles seen north of the Galapagos Islands. I only mention this because everything was huge in the swamps. Insects, animals, and plants were like mutations, so I decided Dead Man's Pond would be the best place to capture the best insects. That is true of Jersey, like, the parasites are huge, the coyotes are huge. It's true. With my trusty net and killing jar, and the snapping turtles are massive. They're huge. They just bask out in the sun, out in the road in front of my house. Nuts. With my trusty net and killing jar, I traveled to my destination and got down to business. Not 10 minutes into my endeavor, I noticed this huge shadow moving back and forth across the pond. I looked up to the sky and see the biggest, scariest bird-like creature gliding across the pond, silent, with glaring eyes. It looked like it had fur rather than features, or rather than feathers, had fur rather than feathers, and its wingspan was about 20 feet. I beat a hasty retreat, nearly pissing my pants and tripping over my own feet. No one would believe my story, and to this day I have not heard or read anything else about this creature. I never went back to Dead Man's Pond. Since the Route 287 project came to Wanakay, most of the swamplands have been developed, destroying any research that could be done to find out if indeed anything strange was living there. So, wingspan 20 feet, bird-like creature, fur rather than feathers. Sounds like a pterodactyl. Pterodactyl confirmed. Fred A saw a pterodactyl. What have I done? I hit the wrong button. Now everything's broken. There we go. Elsie, the kid. We got more cows, dude. More cows on the list. Classic content. Classic cow content, dude. Everybody out there knows, wants to know. You'll do Lobelia, you'll do Lobelia, a purebred Jersey cow, one of the great Elsies of our time, from 1932 to 1941. Poor Lobelia. This famous symbol of the Borden Milk Company was on her way to an appearance in Chicago when she was involved in an auto accident and never quite recovered. She was listed in critical condition and brought back to her home, where she passed away at the Gordon Walker Farm in Plainsboro. A tombstone set on the farm marks her final resting place, although she's not really buried at that spot. The real location of her burial lies behind one of the barns on the property. Keeping the tombstone close to the road gives the curious just enough time to give a quick hello. You'll do, Lobelia, you'll do. The Hoboken Monkey Man. Rumors have been circulating throughout the Hoboken school system during the month of October 1982 about a mysterious ape-like creature that came to be known as the Hoboken Monkey Man. Sounds like a Bigfoot. Hoboken is not in the woods. This half-man, half-beast monkey man was accused of terrorizing schools' hallways, attacking children walking home, throwing students out of windows, and even killing a teacher. The Hoboken Police Department, see, this is not a Bigfoot. Bigfoot is a peaceful animal. The Hoboken Police Department, upset with the disturbing rumors that lasted over 2 weeks, set up a task force to inform the students as to the true facts, or non-facts, behind the scare. The Public Safety Council was called in to help quell the hysteria that pervaded throughout the community. There is no monkey man, no students or children missing, said one official from the Public Safety Council. We went looking for him. He wasn't even in the streets. How do you stop a rumor that's growing like wildfire? Never trust the state. There's no monkey man. There's no students. There's not even a thing as a student. I've never even seen a student in my life. There's no monkey man. The Monkey Man of Bayonne. I'm a fan of Weird New Jersey, and I periodically check out your website. I was especially amused by the Hoboken Monkey Man. There is also a rumor told of a Bayonne Monkey Man. About 6 years ago, my children and I moved to 9th Street in Bayonne, a dead-end block. The end of the block drops off into the Newark Bay. According to the kids in the neighborhood, and the parents too, no one is allowed to go down the hill to the bay, and a fence has been erected to stop trespassers. After several weeks, my children came home with a story explaining why no one is allowed down by the bay. Apparently, there is an old PT boat factory at the bottom of the drop-off. A man lives there who is called Monkey Man. According to my kids, he was abandoned by his parents and has made his home there since he was a child. It is said that he can be found wandering the trails along the Newark Bay. This past summer, my kids say they saw him. According to them, he was wearing a ragged green shirt and had long brown hair on his arms. My younger son saw him again on the abandoned road walking with a dog. He said that he was wearing the same ragged green shirt. The road is gated and locked with chains and padlocks. How did he get in there? Very creepy. From Mary A. I want to know more about this monkey boy. No more to know. Not now, at least. The Matawan Man-Eater. That shark does not look right. It don't look like the right shark. Since its original publication in the number 14 issue of Weird NJ, the story of the Matawan Man-Eater has gotten quite a taste of notoriety. The story of this rogue great white has since been the subject of a History Channel documentary, and is now the focus of 2 separate books that are currently on the market. Warning, if you were planning a vacation down to the Jersey Shore this summer, do not read the following article. It says great white. There's some speculation as to what this shark actually was, whether it was a bull shark or a white. This shark picture does not look like either, I don't think. It's not nearly bulky enough. And it's talking about the Jersey Shore here, but this thing was found like in fresh or brackish water? Brackish? Is that the right word? The Matawan Man-Eater, the real New Jersey Jaws of 1916. Nearly 60 years before Peter Benchley's novel, Jaws, a real man-eater lurked the waters of the New Jersey coast. It was July 11th, 1916, and in Beach Haven, the tourist season was in full swing. The beaches were filled with sunbathers and the ocean with swimmers. Everything seemed like just another hot July day, but this day would be different from any other. A young Penn graduate named Charles E. Van Sant, a resident of Beach Haven, died after having been attacked by a shark while out swimming. A lifeguard pulled him in and tried to stop the profuse bleeding, but Charles could not be saved. Scientists of the area wrote this off as a singular freak occurrence. They could not have been more wrong. 5 days later, the shark would strike again, 45 miles to the north, near the Essex and Sussex Hotel in Spring Lake. Bellboy Charles Bruder would become the second fatality. He was swimming out beyond friends when he was heard screaming, "A shark bit me! Bit my legs off!" These are the last words Charles would ever utter. Mesh barriers went up almost immediately around the swimming areas. Still, it was too late to save the rest of the tourist season. What would happen next would elevate the panic to a new level. 30 miles farther north, residents of Matawan, a small town 11 miles inland from the open ocean, naturally felt that they were safe from the attacks. Swimmers here were confined to the Matawan Creek, a narrow tidal creek that wound its way to the bay. A retired fishing boat captain, Thomas Cattrell, was walking home after a successful day of fishing. When he crossed over Matawan's new trolley drawbridge, he noticed something that seemed almost impossible. A huge shark was heading up the inland waterway. He couldn't believe his eyes, but confident that what he saw was very real, Cattrell ran into Matawan to warn everyone. Though the citizens were all aware of the 2 shark attacks on the coast, no one could really believe there was any great threat of an attack in a small body of fresh water. Despite his vigorous pleas, the captain's story was dismissed as a heat-induced phantom. Ignoring these warnings would prove a very grave mistake. On July 24th, a factory across town was generously letting 11-year-old Lester Stillwell leave work a little early. After meeting some friends, they went for a swim in the Matawan Creek. While they splashed and played, Lester told his 2 friends, both only a few feet away, to watch him floating on his back. A moment later, he was violently pulled beneath the water. His friends listened in disbelief to his screams as he bobbed up and down. Blood filled the water around him as the shark dragged him under again and again. His friends swam as fast as they could, and they ran into town screaming and crying. The boys' impassioned cries for help would not be ignored. 24-year-old Stanley Fisher sped to the creek with two other men, thinking that Lester may have suffered an epileptic seizure. The two men dove in, not knowing there was a shark still attacking the boy's corpse. Stanley Fisher attempted to pull the bloody boy away from the shark and was also killed, sparking a hysteria that would overtake the small town. But the New Jersey man-eater was not yet finished. Heading back downstream towards the ocean, the shark struck again within 1 hour of the last attack, wounding 12-year-old Joseph Dunn, who only narrowly escaped with his life, but not without losing a leg. He would be the fifth and final victim of the marauding fish. Now the town of Matawan, stunned by the gruesome and unlikely attacks, was out for revenge. A reward was offered for the shark, and the people of Matawan became obsessed with vengeance against this evil creature. Some of the townspeople industriously filled the creek with dynamite, hoping to blast the shark into oblivion. The dramatic effort proved unsuccessful. Back on the coast, the greatest shark hunt in the state's history was underway. Although no one knew the species or its size, blind retribution would be swift. Hundreds of sharks were caught and slaughtered. Shortly after the attack, Michael Slitcher, a coastal fisherman, captured the man-eater just outside a creek at the Raritan Bay. It was an 8-foot great white, and when dissected, 15 pounds of various human remains were discovered in its stomach. For many, the grisly discovery brought closure to the summer's horrific events. It was now apparent that a single shark could be responsible for all of these attacks. In the summer of 1916, no one had yet imagined that so many could fall victim to a lone and vicious killer. One has to wonder, could it happen again? Cindy E. Shark kills boy, man, in creek on New Jersey coastal coast. 2 more victims of man-eating shark. Brave bather fatally bitten in rescuing boy who also died. Monster mangles bather and rescues second lad, badly bitten. Strays from ocean. Shark kills bather off Jersey beach. Bites off both legs of a youth swimming beyond Spring Lake. Lake lifelines. Rewards find... What does that say? Not rewards. Guards find him dying. And that's that, folks. That's the weird animals. That's all the weird animals, right? Right? Yeah. Next is Cemetery Safari, which we will get to next time. Everyone go buy t-shirt. teespring.com/stores/Yakov-alive. Buy shirt. Fund my misadventures. And next time we'll hear about this cemetery safari, Bud's Grave, Frankie Lemon, Little Willie and the Clown Tree, Mary Ellis Grave, Pyramid Tomb, Singin' Sam's Grave, Stylish Ride, Pet Cemetery. Thank you all for joining me. Whoop whoop to every single one of you, and I will see you next time. Godspeed, one and all, dude.